All right. Hello, everyone. In today's discussion, I will be tackling about the history of the philosophy. So this recording or video recording will be made as a reserve, especially for those who are really struggling with regards to internet connection or securing a stable connection. So they cannot. This is there are students who are really struggling to join the real-time discussion on the respected schedule of, for example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Although there is an agreement that at least we will have virtual discussion or meeting at least once a week. But for some reasons, there are some who cannot join real time. So this is some sort of reservation of my discussion that will be uploaded via YouTube, Facebook, or Messenger. That so if in case they cannot join, they will have something to watch, to replay, to have learning regarding the topic that I will be giving during the schedule. So let me start with the no, with the introduction. I will borrow the questions of Professor Jovito Carreño of University of Santo Tomas about his book um, Fundamentals of Ethics. He asked at the back of his book, what makes life worth living? So this question is somehow very relevant to, to any time, any generation. What makes life worth living? Where lies the path that leads to happiness? Are you struggling to be happy? Like for good? How does one become the person he or she wants to be? Do you aspire to become an artist? Do you aspire to become like Nancy of Momoland? Like Richard Gutierrez? Or like Angel Oxine? Do you wish to imitate them? Or how does one become the person he or she wants to be? Does that really the one that you like a mirror somebody? Or you want to be someone that who you really are? What is justice? These are some of the questions which make ethics a perennial concern since ancient times. Imagine. So these still the same questions being asked or being discussed at the table since the ancient time up to now in the contemporary time. Finding the key to fulfilled and meaningful life is irrelevant to civilizations and cultures of long ago, as it is to the inhabitants of today's digitized and globalized world. Imagine, with this pandemic, we are challenged to become digitalized, to maximize the use of internet, of our gadgets. Who would have thought that we will have this kind of setting now? No one has expected that this will happen. We will no longer be facing one to one physically, right? So these are the questions, you know, that has been asked before, but now becoming reality. Becoming human, in other words, is an ending task. So the work of Professor Jovito Carreño attempts to help students develop a more perceptive appreciation of this important fact. So by linking the past with the present, it is it is unending, it is unbroken, it cannot be broken. We are not like this now if it would not have been because of our past. So hindi ako magiging ganito ngayon kung hindi ako dumaan sa pagkabata o sa aking naranasan in the past. That yours with the real life situations, yung ating natutunan being put to practice in reality, being realized. So, with this hopes to cultivate in them a larger design to learn well so as to live well. You know what, class? The struggle of, you know, somehow this is my subjective point that in philosophy there is always a struggle to connect the theory into becoming pragmatic. There is this two school of thoughts, the reason and the experience from the ancient times. So we will be tackling the one even before that. We will be discussing that later on. But I would just like to give you an overview about philosophy being this dichotomic terms, the reason and experience, the warring, because who is more superior, our reason, our mind, or the practice itself? Yung, kumbaga, the question is, how do we learn? Paano tayo natututo? Is it because of reason or because we learn it through experience? At, for example, yung apoy, yung fire, we learn that it's hot because of experience. Natutunan ba yun ng reason before touching the fire? Masasabi mo ng mainit? No. Even with you know that experience is always attached to senses. Our sense of smell, of touch, of seeing, hearing. Those are parts of the senses. So during the ancient times, we have this term called pre-Socratic. Socrates, or the one being used as the prominent figure of philosophy, is is Socrates because he's the first one who have started or who revolutionized philosophy from the discussion of the physical world into the human, um, or sort of anthropology about the human nature, sort of about the end of man. So he was the first one to shift. Imagine, yung nag-uusap kayo, nag-enjoy kayo, nagtatawanan kayo sa discussion niyo about a joke, then certainly there's another one na nag-interrupt, and then yung sagot niya is out of the topic, mapatulala na lang mo na, huh? What's the connection? So that's what Socrates did to the pre-Socratic philosophers. They are enjoying answering the question about the natural world, about the natural process. What is the basic element? What is the primary substance? Answering the question, what is the world made of? Then suddenly Socrates shift the question, the discussion, into what makes life worth living. So, di ba? So, we will go to Socrates later on, but let's start first. In ancient Greece, at the earliest stage, physics, mathematics, and astronomy were included as parts of philosophy, which means the love of wisdom. Philos and Sophia. Philos, love. Sophia is wisdom. Sino ba naman sa atin yung hindi nagmamahal ng what do you call the kaalaman? Wisdom. So, who among us who did not love wisdom? There's one question, are we all philosophers in the first sense? Human by its nature, we are curious. Since childhood up to now, there are there are questions that just promptly arise or will arouse in our mind na mapapatanong ka bakit ganito, bakit ganyan, until you want it to be experienced so that you will know the answer. That's an that's the nature of our mind, being inquisitive, you know, full of inquiries that we want to answer by experiencing, or not just by experiencing, by uh, making experiments or putting yourself into the into the situation so that you will know, you will find out. Like yung sinabi ko kanina, bakit mainit yung apoy? You will learn it by experience or by your reason. So up to you which will be more powerful as a means or channel of learning. Is it our mind or our experience? So that's the definition, the love of wisdom. And sadly, in the world of academia right now, it seems like philosophy has been disregarded Yung nag-embrace na lang nito ay yung mga ano na lang, no, mga seminaries, the Protestant seminaries as well, and Catholic seminaries, who are attaching philosophy to their prior to the study of theology as an introductory course to study about God, of God, and about metaphysics whatsoever. Um, most of the academy are no longer offering philosophy. And imagine in the world of philosophy, we are being thought to be more critical, so that we cannot just support the politician that we love, and be blind by their actions or whatsoever their agendas behind their propagandas. So we will just follow them because we love them, without thinking critically, is this person an advocate for the common good, for the good of all? Sila ba ay nagiging, are they presenting themselves as is a good politician, di ba? So those are the the questions that might, you know, might apply to yourself. Are you being critical, di ba? So that's it. So hopefully that this course, this philosophy, this is before we'll proceed to the discussion of ethics. Of course, I would like to introduce you what philosophy looks like. What's the origin of philosophy, so that you will have a background what we are going to study. Okay, so it seeks to trace everything back to its ultimate grounds. So, like what I've said earlier, the Stephen Hawking about time, what is the origin of the universe? They are being called as primitive cosmologists because they are already tackling about the origin of the universe during their time without those instruments, telescopic instruments, um, um, high-tech instruments to study about the cosmos, the universe, the heavenly bodies, the planets, the stars, and all. Diba? They don't have those instruments at all. By how in the world at those primitive time they have this kind of inquiries in their minds? So that's how philosophy, because they are already wondering the process of nature, whether there is death, whether there is life, whether the river is flowing, why the trees are growing, and all, why there is, we are being born and then we grow and die. Those processes that makes them wonder what is really the universe, like that, because of those processes, because of those observations. So philosophy seeks to know why there is a universe at all. So that starts with that's the where the law of causation, everything which has a beginning and has a cause. That's the principle of the law of causation being observed, that the the things around has a cause, has a beginning, and it has an end. So this the cause is being studied in here. So for Plato, the unmoved mover, the uncaused cause. So for example, I'm moving. What makes me move? Because of my internal, because of the energy that I have, and who gives me the energy, the food, and who brings the food, who makes the food. That goes on all the way back. And there is the one, I think, term known as the prime mover. It means he is the source of the movements. When I say he is the source of the movements, no one moves him but himself. So I do not know that take note, guys, that during the ancient philosophy, there's no such thing as God. Wala pa yun sa isip nila. Maybe they have deities, they have those mythology in the field of religion, but they don't have this term as prime mover as being called as God. Wala pa silang ganon. So, um, during this time, they have just term, that left you into. There's a term named prime mover, but mapapaisip ka, sino ba to? But during your time, you might say it's God. But the during your time, they did not know at all. But they called it prime mover. Like for example, in Sakyanan, the car. The car moves because of the engine. Who makes the engine? Man. Who makes man? Ganun. Sino bang gumawa sa tao before he's born? Yeah, in the creationism theory, there's the creator of man is God, and who create God. Diba? In the field of science, evolution, we are coming from species by species, and there's a process called survival of the fittest, and we are the strongest of all. Well, that's why we survive among all the creations. The survival of the fittest and they said that our our origin is from apes because of the genetic comparison, the common genetic, you know, that exists in our body, na nag-exist sa ating katawan and then the body of the apes. And until we became man, and through the discoveries of different form of skulls of the, you know, kani mga bungo in the caves and all, because of those, you know, experiments, they're being linked together. That's why they have this proposition that we came from apes. All right, so let's proceed. The earliest pre-Socratic Greek philosophy, the Ionic school, this is in Ionia, part of a colony of Greece, coast of Asia Minor. According to Arthur Holmes, we pronounced tails as Thales, but for him it's tails, Anaximenes. So slang, but we'll just, you know, be natural. Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, and etc. So the first one is Thales, who answered the question what is the basic or the primary substance is. He is the founder or father of Ionic school of ancient Greek philosophy, famous of his mathematical and astronomical learning and practical wisdom. Thales believed that the principle of all things is water, because that all comes from water and to water all returns. Diba, atong lawas is 60%, 70% are made of water, what two-thirds of our body, the earth, two-thirds percent of the earth is made of water, and then plants grows because of water, and there is life because of water. So that's an excellent answer to the question what is the primary substance that gives life, or the cause of all. The cause of all. That water is the cause of all. That's according to Thales. Second, that the in his proposition that the earth is a flat disk that floats up in the water. So for him, the the earth is a flat disk which floats upon water. So yaha na siyang according to him, his proposition that the earth is a flat disk. So ngaron na naman tayo instruments that could, you know, we have satellites could look up on the body of the earth as a spherical form, not a flat. But for him that water is the source of all, because for him that the earth is a flat disk floating upon water. Galutaw tas water, di ba? Okay. And the significance of Thales is not that this war philosophy has any value in itself. It seems that this philosophy is wrong, according to nowadays science, yet there are still some people who believe that the earth is flat. Bisag na-prove ng sphere, nagyapoy gato nga flat. And they have formed a flat earth academic society. So nagday sila group. But that this was the first recorded attempt to natural and scientific principles, not by myths and gods. This is a rational method by by their thinking. They arrived to such conclusions that the earth or the cosmos or the universe is made of water, comes from water, and to water will return. Because water is a dominant substance or elements around us. Okay, so for him, for Thales, for Thales, ultimate reality or the premise of this war, but later other ancient Greek philosophers, Anaximander, for Anaximander, no, it's an indefinite matter. So for Anaximander, di siya mutuo na it's war, it's an indefinite matter. So according to him, this indefinite matter is boundless. He said that who held that underlying cause of everything, the cause of everything was an indefinable stuff that he called the boundless. He cannot name it, so that's why he called it boundless. It's like subtle, metaphysical. It's like inanimate, hindi natin nakikita, not physical. So one reported story of his life is that when he sang "The Children Laugh," When hearing of this, he said, "We must then sing better for the sake of the children." So um, he cannot really name the this primary substance, but he said it's boundless. And he was the first to introduce this name of the material cause. He says it is neither water nor any other of the so-called elements, but a substance different from them, which is infinite, infinite, eternal. Dili siya ma-destroy. It will not, you know, perish, something on, demarcate, from which arise all the heavens and the worlds within them. Imagine during this time, before 500 century BC, during these times, na siya ingana nga panghuna-huna. That kind of mind working, that this is an indefinite matter, a boundless matter, that is the cause of everything, that arise all the heavens and the worlds within them. Um, According to him, that the boundless, which is na air or water, in order that other things may not be destroyed by their infinity. So dili ko siya ma-destroy. The elements are in opposition to each other. For example, the air is cold, water is moist, and fire hot. Therefore, if any one of them were infinite, the rest would have ceased to be by this time. Thus he said that what is infinite is something other than the elements. From from it the elements arise. So this is already from the commentary of Aristotle, that the infinite is something other than the elements, because the elements might be destroyed, might be annihilated through time. But for this one, he cannot describe it objectively. He just named it boundless. But for Anaximenes, he said, no, it's not the indefinite matter that you say, it's the air. Um, he said that the air, because imagine that we are also surrounded by air. It's also a dominant matter. But for him, it differs in different substances in virtue of its rarefication and condensation. Rarefication, mo change of form. In its thinest state, it comes to be. So, iyang pinaka ang air into its thinnest state, it comes to be. And then being condensed, it becomes wind. Yeah. Then cloud. And when it's still further condensed, it becomes water. Then earth, then the stones, and the rest of things comes to be out of this. Imagine, yapig yung gi refute. He refute even the answer of Thales, the water. That water is coming from the air, di ba? Okay, let's proceed. Pythagoras. For Pythagoras, um, his view is actually different. It's already it's it's already an advanced idea about the essence of things, that about the superiority of number, because number is the one that governs us all. Um, it takes up space and have measure. Imagine we are bounded by number in mathematics. He is the author of the famous Pythagorean theorem: a squared plus b squared equals to c squared of the right triangles. So we are governed by numbers. Our age is numbered. Our population is being counted by numbers. Um, all things are being measured by numbers. So that's why he said we are all governed by numbers. Let's go back. For Anaximenes, it's air. Heraclitus, no, it's fire. Heraclitus around 540 BC. He was the first one to emphasize the general process of change and to carefully analyze particular manifestation thereof. So, kaning iya, siya mo yung nag-propose about the that everything is in constant change. Mayroon kag in constant change. Look at the surround you. You yourself are changing through time. You're growing, your hair is thickening and then mugamay, mo bald, you're being mas stressed kasi work or your study, or 'di ba ang mga kahoy will grow and then it will grow old. There's always change. Everything is in constant change. As one of the song of Jose Marichan will say, that the only constant is change. So he is the one of the proponent of the change and the logos. Mingkag logos. Logos is a Greek word for word. It is being used by John in his gospel, in the verse 1. In in the beginning was the word. In the beginning was the logos. So he argued that an ever-changing world around us is held together through a unifying principle that he called the logos. Heraclitus was born into an aristocratic family from the Ionian city of Ephesus, not far from the city of Miletus, where Greek philosophy first began. Kaya imagine mo ang mga Griego during this time. They will meet at one place and they will argue there the recent or the latest issues around them about philosophy, about politics, and whatsoever. Um, he grew in fame. He also became disliked by his fellow citizens for his superior tone and gained the nickname the obscure for his use of riddles. So, maayo pa siya magamit ng riddles. Kung si Jesus maayo magamit ng sambingay, parables, siya riddles. He is a self-taught. He claimed that he investigated everything there was to know and learned everything by himself. That's why he has wrote a book on nature. Um, he said that the problem is that everything in the world is continually changing. This is what I've said earlier. Things grow, then decay. They're created, but then disintegrate. The most permanent things we see, like mountains or stone monuments, wear down with time. After 10 years, 20 years, mudaan and maguba through the involvement the of the sun and then the rain. As things change, they exhibit opposing tendencies. Cold things become warm, and what is warm cools, what is wet dries, and the dry is moistened. He famously makes this point with the analogy of stepping into a river. You cannot step twice into the same river. He's known of his this line or thought. He said that you cannot step twice into the same river. Imagine, ni tikang ka sa suba, the river, you cannot step at the same time sa imong gikuan. For example, ni step ka na, ni lakang ka diha, kung ano yung del mo lakang ka usab, it's no longer the same river, as he said, because the flowing elements, the substance on that is no longer the same water that you are nga imong gitapakan the former katong niagi nimong tapak. It's already different because the river is flowing. And then the next one is Empedocles, who said that the four elements is the primary substance: the earth, the water, fire, and wind. So that's it. And then that was the first stage of the pre-Socratic philosophers, which is very essentially cosmological in character. The second period of ancient Greek philosophy are the Sophists and then next to those are Socrates, Plato, then Aristotle. That's where the maturity of ancient Greek philosophy came in. So that's where we start with ethics because of the entrance or the appearance of Socrates, Plato to Aristotle during their time. And imagine the ethics wrote by Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics is one of the most famous work on ethics until now. Though many have disregarded it already because it's ancient, but for me it's somehow very relevant, especially if you are a believer that through time we are maturing and through the process of flourishing na filter na tong atong mga bad attitudes into good ones later on. So, Greece, in line with history, was considered as the birthplace of philosophy, where the thrill of the questionings has begun. It happened when the Greek thinkers realized they needed more than what poets and storytellers could tell about the world around them. I already discussed those, but let me just further go continue. They began to ponder and study the processes of nature, especially the coming and the passing away of life, the changing seasons, the movement of the stars, the rising and the ebbing of the sea tide, solely in their own terms. Without appealing to pronouncement of oracles or narrations, these are independent from mythology, like about this is just simply reason. It's free from um beliefs about the religion. Especially that during that time they have these deities like the Olympian gods. Because of such observations, the early Greek thinkers believed it was possible to view nature this way, commencing their search for the primary and ultimate substance underlying the manifestation of cosmic change. Hence, these Greek wise men were also recognized as the first natural scientists. Natural scientists, kumbaga, sila may initiate about the discovering about the process of nature because of their efforts to understand the inner workings of nature through theoretical experiments. Say, for example, as discussed in the previous topic, okay, about the Thales down to Anaximander.